What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Sitting all the way across the city from me this week and every week, he's the king of all VR kings. He's the sofa king himself, Agent 47, with some really nice hair, Jeremy King.
Yeah, I can thank the VR headset for pushing that hair down. But and all the way over, I don't know, northeast from me, if I had snowshoes on, I could make it to him and then shimmy up the pipe like Agent 47 and then pew, it is Bryan. Oh.
And every week on Why We Love PlayStation VR, we dip into the PlayStation VR archive, we pull out a game at random, we dust the blow off it, we play the crap out of it, it's been given a led by developers, any updates, any DLC, then we let you know, the loyal game cats, if it's worth your time. I didn't do it, oh my god. Jeremy, what game did we decide to play? I feel like we should start the whole show over. You can't have a show like that. What game did we decide to play this week?
We did Hitman in VR.
Hitman 1, aka 2016 Hitman, or Hitman 2016, by IO Interactive, released March 11th, 2016, and continued to be released until October 31st, 2016. And I'll make this simple and say that the Game of the Year edition of Hitman 1 retails currently for $59.99. As you said, we didn't really care about this game until Hitman 3 came out, because Hitman 3 allows us to play Hitman 1 and 2 in VR. If you're unfamiliar with how this works, you don't just get Hitman 1 and 2 for free. You need to own Hitman 3 because that's the thing that will bring it into VR, but then you also need to purchase Hitman 1 and 2 and then import that into the game, and that's how you can play Hitman 1, 2, and 3 in VR.
Okay, there's a little bit of moving parts to get it rolling, but once you do, easy.
It's not just like, oh, these are the levels of Hitman 1 and 2. From the main screen, it's like, do you want to play Hitman 1, Hitman 2, or Hitman 3? And you're just like, and then boom, you go in and you're good to go.
Yeah.
So this is the 6th game in the series. The story actually does pick up after Hitman Absolution, but it's considered a soft reboot. What's your experience with the series before this?
So I didn't do Hitman PC like the very first one. Then it was released after that on console. I don't remember if it went Hitman 2 Silent Assassin and then Hitman 1 was available. I don't know, but I played all up until this one that we're currently playing now when it got released in episodic. I felt, because in 2016, there had been a few years since a Hitman game came out. So when this came out and it was episodic, I thought it was just like a little arcade, type of a shooter thing that was in the Hitman universe. So I kind of shoved it off and really didn't pay attention to it. Plus, I didn't want to deal with episodic shit. I wanted a game. Here's my money. Give me the whole game. I was less open to that, as opposed to now, 4 or 5 years later, that I kind of like these little episodic things that keep you going for longer, So I played all the past ones, but it had been many years since playing a Hitman.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What about you? Did you ever play any of the old ones?
I mean, yes. I bought at some point Hitman Absolution. I played a little bit of that. I know that's not really considered a standout title in the series. But I checked out some of the different levels. I was impressed what it did graphically. But overall, I wasn't enthralled to stick with it to the end. And then before that, I think I played a little bit of Hitman 2 on PlayStation 2, and that was probably it. I mean, and to say that I played a little bit, I mean, I played a level. I was like, this is fine, but it's exactly what I think it is, and it's, again, not roping me in. When this got announced, I know everybody freaked out. Everybody's like, oh, my Hitman 3. And then at the end of the reveal, they said, and you're going to play the entire World of Assassination, which is Hitman 1, 2, and 3, 2016 to 2021, in VR. And everybody was freaking out. And I was like, that's great news because it's AAA games. But there was a part of me that was like, but I don't really care.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I hear you with that. And by the way, most memorable thing about Silent Assassin 2 was that when I worked at GameStop, the receipts said Hitman 2 Silent Ass.
I knew that was coming. That was coming. Every single time you sold one, you were like, woohoo, another Silent Ass.
Yeah, like, it never got old.
It's funny that to see how this game launched, to be honest with you, because looking back and like watching the initial reviews for this thing, that it's called Hitman Episode 1 review, and what it was the 2 training facility training missions, the ICA training facility missions, and also the fashion show. And I was like, that was it, man. Like, it launched with like very, very little content.
Hmm.
And just seeing what people's reaction to that was crazy, because when I jumped in, and when you jumped in, I guess we saw the complete package. We saw all of the different levels, and it was all together, and
Yeah.
you could sort of see like how they evolved, and like by putting out these different missions or these different levels a month after each other. It gave them just enough time to kind of like tweak things and learn things, and
Yeah.
expand on ideas. And it's like, so the game actually technically, I feel like, gets better as it goes because of the
Yeah.
way they released it. But like
Hmm.
you couldn't see that at release. You couldn't see that at launch to be like, oh man, eventually this is gonna be great. And so I was looking
Yeah.
through like launch reviews today. People were giving it sixes and sevens, and I was like, oh, that's really disappointing. But they
Mediocre.
couldn't
Yeah.
they couldn't really see the forest through the trees.
Yep.
I want to hear some of your impressions here. I want to hear what is Hitman, and a lot of this is going to pertain to Hitman 1, 2, and 3 as a trilogy
Yeah.
in VR. How do you feel about playing this in first person VR rather than on a flat screen third person?
So I actually did it both ways. The very first mission, I think it was the that training facility one where it was like
The
they
yacht.
would make you the yacht, yeah, where they were making you redo a mission that had happened in like 1970 something successfully, whatever it was, I
Mm.
forget. And they just rebuilt the structure and populated it with people, and you went in training and did this. So I went in first in VR to do it, and I I had an absolute blast. I could not believe it. Like the way the controls work, the way you sneak, and the way you look around, and the way you're walking amongst the party people, and the it was just pretty insane to me to be in the Hitman world, similar to the way it was for me to be in the Resident Evil world, where you
Mm.
saw it as a static image all the time. And now it was like, oh my, I'm in a grossed out Resident Evil nasty ass mansion. So like it was mind blowing. Similar to this, it was like now you're Agent 47, which that's like being Sam Fisher, which the Splinter Cells they could do this with that. It basically made me realize there's so much more they could reintroduce games that have already been made and then just put them into VR. I mean, take my money. I would buy the original Splinter Cell from the original Xbox if they kind of updated it and threw it on, for a VR game. But like the immersion in the game, and when I did the kill and then when I was leaving, that tension of like, oh my god, got to get out of here, I just killed somebody, someone's gonna notice, and I'm like trying to just get out, and people like, hello sir, and like, oh, and I got out of there and I left, and I was like, oh yes, I felt like I accomplished something. My heart was like this, I was like, holy shit. Then I went back and I did pancake. I just did the normal way, and yes, it's pretty. And of course the graphics are way more just tight. It looks next gen. I mean, of course. And it is a little bit of a different gameplay because it's third person. So you
Right.
can kind of like see around in a perspective that they don't give you in the first person. It almost felt like cheating. And I went through the mission. I did a different way than I did because that's what's great about these games. It's very very sandbox. You can just tackle one objective many different ways. So I went in and then I did my duty and then I left. And I didn't have any of that. Oh my God, I got to get out of here. Who's behind me? That tension, none of that immersion, and none of that when I was like grabbing somebody and strangling them, being like, "Ugh," and shaking the control because I'm like, is somebody going to come? I got to kill them,
Yeah.
like disposing the body. None of that was there in the normal traditional way of playing it. So I mean, it's Christ. It's like having a dream or living a dream, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's man, there's definitely a lot to unpack here. Um,
Yeah,
Yeah, in first person mode, I 100% agree with you. First person VR, I'm walking around, somebody's like, "Hello, sir," and I'm like, and I actually like, "Oh, hello," like
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
because in real life, if you don't respond, people are gonna go, "What's that guy up to? What's he doing? What's
yeah,
he? Why is he being suspicious?" And so I actually respond like, "Hi," and like that's not on stream. That's not like recording gameplay footage. That's me playing the game and just getting into the role, being like,
yeah,
"Hello, I'm not doing anything wrong. Don't look at me."
yeah. Yeah.
And you're right. You're right. There's so much tension being like I'm strangling somebody, and I'm like looking around. I'm like, is anyone seeing this? Is like, what's going on? Is
Yeah.
there any way to, what am I? Where am I going to bring this guy as soon as like he's unconscious? And trying to like hide people and stuff, and just the act of dragging them across the floor. I'm like, it's so slow, and I'm like,
I
man,
know.
please, please, please let me get to that closet over on the other side of the room before somebody comes in, like for a
Yeah.
security check or something. And it's very very tense, and I love that.
Yeah.
But I've got to ask though. Part of this whole immersion thing, the DualShock 4 is the only way
Hmm.
to play this, and I think that
Yeah.
obviously that's been getting a lot of criticism all over the place. And the fact is if they had done this Resident Evil style where everything was just a button press or whatever, I could kind of see them getting away with it a little bit more than what they did with, which was basically making the DualShock 4 like a move controller. It's like using the
Yes.
light bar tracking, so your right hand is basically tracking.
Yeah, and the other one's just kind of like sometimes follows, sometimes drifts off the screen.
Yeah.
That's a downside. You can't be lefty and play this game. You're always kind of righty.
There's no
You know,
option to switch that, huh? Oh my god.
maybe Nick Mulo can correct me, but I looked and I did not see a
Hmm.
left-handed option. But it actually didn't bother me too much. I'm maybe I don't know. Even aiming to shoot, it was okay. I don't know why. It was like it almost seemed like natural. I don't know. But so it didn't really do it didn't mess me up as like a lefty would, like in the Walking Dead games where, reaching down for your belt buckle or something like that. That was a little different. With this, it's like you've got this little chest orb thing that basically is your inventory. So when you bring your controller into this vicinity, this orb opens up, and from there you can place items, or you can use the left and right directional to open up and take your items out and shoot. So the way they did it, it didn't really matter if you were lefty or righty playing it.
Mm.
And I do get the disconnect by not having the two move controllers for this, because it is janky, it is a little wobbly, it's not perfect, by far.
Yeah.
But everything else they nailed so goddamn well. It's like, all right, I can get it. It's like dating, for me it would be like Natalie Portman, and she had 9 toes. I'd be like, okay, you know what I mean? There could have been a 10, but
Wow.
it's Natalie Portman, you know?
Nick, so it's
So
all,
that's
all is
like this.
forgiven. All is forgiven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like this. They did such a smash up, bang up job, that I can deal with the regular old DualShock,
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
Yeah, I felt pretty much the same way. It was I hated the fact that it was DualShock at first, because if you're watching this and you're like, well, it's tough to do full locomotion with move controllers. That's something you get over eventually. That's something after years of playing PSVR. Hopefully not years, but I have been playing PSVR for years. So hopefully for most people, it's like a matter of a month or two where it's the move controller or locomotion becomes second nature, right? So
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, that's not even an issue. So I didn't really see a huge benefit to having DualShock, because the only benefit there really is to have full locomotion with analog sticks. And if that's not a benefit, then I'm like, well, then what the fuck did we do this for? Why didn't you
Yeah.
give me the option to play with moves, especially since there's already kind of tracking implemented? How hard could it be? Really, really hoping that they reconsider this whole thing and that they go back and add support for everybody who wants it. That
Yeah.
said, like you said, it is the 9 toe situation.
Yeah.
This game is we didn't talk. You said on the flat screen, it's beautiful, next gen looking.
Yeah.
In the headset, as far as I'm concerned, this is what I thought PSVR 2 was going to look like.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. This
Right?
to me was almost as impressive as how other people were impressed by the Maiden demo. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so like people were blown away by the next gen Maiden demo, and I was like, yeah. But like I was blown away by the Hitman graphics in VR.
Yeah.
I could not believe some of the textures, some of the look, the variety, the color, the fabric blowing in the breeze.
Right.
You know what I mean? The people.
So many
Yeah,
people.
you could turn your head and people pop in, because it loads. But who the fuck cares? You know what I mean? Like, big deal. It's just set dressing. They're not like anything that you need to deal with. It's just to like populate to make the cities look like they're lived in. So if a few objects pop in, great. That people forget about, like riding a griffin in Warcraft years back, where the environments would pop in. It's like they forgave that because of the scope. It's like with this, I can forgive it. There's so much happening here That little things like that is nitpicking. It doesn't bother me because the overall everything is just the game looks gorgeous. You know, and the variety of environments too,
Yeah.
and they give you a little, you know, as you explore Bangkok or whatever these areas, you ching, it makes that sound, and there's like a little bit of this bar that fills up.
Oh
So you,
God,
you
yeah.
can actually walk around and view, which I don't advise because being a hired hitman in VR and just walking around to see the sights, you end up killing shit and you end up getting in trouble.
This is such a fun game. Like it's just it
Yeah.
doesn't take itself too seriously. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna walk down a runway right now in a Hitman game. I'm gonna like this is so like not you would never ever do this as a hired assassin. You know, you're walking
No.
down this runway. Nobody in the crowd is like, it doesn't look quite. We've seen this guy. He was on a giant poster right outside. That's not him.
Yeah.
No,
That ain't it.
nobody. You're like, oh, you just blended right in, like in front of
Yeah.
literally hundreds of people. So
Yep.
it's kind
Nobody
of goofy,
knows.
but I do love it. Um,
Yeah.
and but so like those first two training missions where it's like they're sort of impressive graphically, you know, like the map's not gigantic like they eventually become,
Yeah.
and they're not crazy diverse like they eventually become. So I was impressed with the first couple levels, being like, wow, this runs in a really high resolution. Wow, like look at all the people that populate the areas. Wow, this is pretty good looking. And then I got
Yeah.
to Sapienza, like that fake town
Yeah.
in Italy that they made. and
Yes.
and it's like, man, suddenly this is a living breathing world,
Yes.
and it changes everything, man. It is like you're just
Oh,
dropped there like near the beach, and you're like, I'm gonna go walk around this like little town, this like resort town, and there's all these little storefronts and shops and stuff and people hanging around and scooters leaning up against the wall, and it just feels so lived in and real and well crafted. And then you
yeah.
you walk out from that area, and it's like this big beautiful beach area, and there's a church over here, and I definitely took down that priest and walked around the fucking town as a priest for an hour, no reason whatsoever, no reason.
Right?
And there
Yeah.
there there is a reason. That's the great thing, is that like if you explore enough, you can find all sorts of stuff
Yes.
that's going
For-
on that has nothing to do with the main mission, or it does, but like
No.
not really.
And they'll react to you differently. And like obviously changing, killing these, you know, people and putting their clothes on allows you access closer to your target, hopefully.
Right.
But what's so neat is like you hear these stories that might be happening as you walk down the street and you stop, you listen, and it adds to your story mission. Like you can
Yeah.
find an alternate way. Like there was one time, just stop listening. I forget. It was one of the first few missions, of third or fourth. And then this dude was talking to this girl, and he's saying how his dad kept a key out of memorabilia for, you know, when he used to be something, the headmaster something. So I didn't even have to read. I'm like, I'm gonna go fucking kill this dude, take the key, and I'm gonna let myself into wherever it is.
Hmm.
But like you could read, and it did say that basically, you know, you can press the button and we'll tell you, oh, this person's dad, you know, was a headmaster here, has a key that opens up all these doors. But like that's the beauty of this game. When you play it, you can hear these things, and you don't need a mission telling you what to do. You're like,
Right.
what? Your dad has a key to? I'm gonna go get it.
Yeah.
So I went. I hit the fucker with the wrench. I, you know, didn't even hide his body. I just put his clothes on, grabbed the key, you know, climbed the ledge, shimmied down. I found the battle axe, and I wasn't sure what that was about, but I carried it with me. I shimmied down. People saw me, and they fucking started shooting through the battle axe, and that's when I just killed one of them, and just da, 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 da. That's the great thing with this game is when you fuck up, shit hits the fan. And there was so many times that shit just hit the fan, and I'd be like, Bing, 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 no, not him too, Bing. And then people are like, I'm gonna go get help, and you're like, no, Bing, you know, and you're just trying to kill
Yeah.
and keep all of it contained, and then trying to hide bodies, change outfits, and leave, and go find somebody else, change your outfit quick so that nobody's looking for that chef.
Yeah.
You know, now you're wearing a traditional white suit. You know, it's so fun.
It's so weird because it really is like a living, breathing world. It's like all of this happens and like chaos broke out and like shit hit the fan. But then like, yeah, like you said, you switch clothes, and then people are looking for somebody else and they're not looking for you. And so walking around the scene of the crime is always kind of hilarious, because like then there'll be people like dragging dudes out in body bags and stuff. Be like people
Oh,
clean
really?
up people clean up the crime scene.
I didn't know that. I never, ever, ever did I ever return to any of the crime scenes. I mean,
It's fascinating.
yeah, they actually continue to do things in like body bags and remove
Yeah,
them.
yeah. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And so the thing you're talking about, like with the key, the headmaster thing, so that's something that Hitman 1 actually introduced into the series called opportunities. And so when you're walking through the level and you hear that ching, that noise, it's alerting you to be like, hey, pay attention to this. Something's happening. It's like oh, okay, well this girl's talking to this guy and they're talking about like that they're servers at a restaurant, and I'm like, is that the restaurant I need? That's got to be the restaurant I need to go in. I'm just going to follow
Right.
you. And that's I think that's sort of the formula that every single level uses. It's you just get thrown into an area, and then it's your first objective is sort of like figuring out, okay, how do I get into the place I need to get into? If you're dressed up as a waiter, some of the other new waiters might not recognize you, or might not be an issue. But the chef might be, who's familiar with all the waiters, might go, wait a minute,
Who are you?
you're not supposed to be here. And those people have a little dot above their head, so the stealth continues long after you changed your outfit.
Oh yeah, totally. And that's one thing we should say too is the replayability of these levels. There's so many different ways to kill a person
Yeah.
in the game. And what's great about it is when you go into the game, there's like besides Hitman, if you're gonna do 1, 2, or 3, then when you go in and you select what campaign, then when you select the mission, then right there it shows you the objectives of the missions. There's even as you play the game and master it, you can go back and add different starting areas, right? And
Yep.
then you can actually smuggle weapons into certain areas. So like they'll continue to make things available to you so you can go back and try different ways to kill this or these multiple targets, because generally there's multiple targets per
Yeah.
area. So they really make it so you want to go back and you want to try a different way. And that was in the leaderboards, like you get to see your friends and the scores and how they killed. And I mean, like you and AJ, I destroyed you guys. The very first real mission, I think it was the runway.
I'm not surprised, even in the slightest.
Yeah, because I went ballsy with the chandelier. I just went to the corner, everybody in the crowd, because like initially I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try this. Let me see if anybody knows. I'll take out my gun and I'm like, dink, and then boom, and everyone's like, oh my god.
Right.
I hid my gun and I walked right out.
That's the crazy thing. You can make crazy things happen, and but no one suspects you because you're nowhere near it. It's like you're kind of setting these things up to happen, and that's the best way to play the levels. It's not just like sneaking into a room or shooting a dude and then running away and hiding. Like that's kind of like low level Hitman gameplay, right? That's what I revert to when I start feeling stressed out, when I feel like a level's taking too long. If I'm walking around the level for 2 hours, I'm like, I need to shoot something, man. Like I run in and like start shooting. I'm like, I got him. I'm like, well, let's go hide in the closet.
Yeah. There's happy little accidents. Like I remember one of the beginning missions, I poisoned somebody and I thought that was it. They were gonna die. So I poisoned the food and I got the fuck out of there. I shimmied along an edge and I was over in a side area, right? And then I hear the dude sitting and eating and talking like, oh, the fucking food. And he was just bitching about it. And then he ate it. And then all of a sudden I hear somebody like, are you all right? And then I could see through the wall one of the dots or a question mark above somebody's head, like somebody was alerted to something going on over there. And the dude I poisoned the food in the kitchen. This dude ate the food out in some courtyard somewhere. I was hidden over here. This dude comes walking along the edge where I was and then is hanging out in this small area sick and throwing up. And I was like, blink, and I threw him right off the ledge, and that's how I killed him. So I didn't know. I thought I was going to kill him that way, but no, he ended up getting sick and walking towards where I was coincidentally. And I'm like, this is perfect. This dude's dead. And then boom, I killed him.
Yeah.
So it's great. I love how this game does that. It gives you a lot of unexpecteds, even though it seems very expected,
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact is like, if you play through this, like from beginning to end, like you probably blast through it 12, 15 hours maybe. But that's like, again, real surface level stuff. Like to really experience everything Hitman has to offer, like you're going to spend easily 60 hours in this game because it's all about playing and replaying and replaying and replaying. And I think that's sort of like the genius of what IO Interactive and Square Enix were going for, I think, with the episodic thing, saying we're basically going to give you a month to just fuck around in this level, right? Almost force you to like really enjoy it. Be like, oh, I played through it once, but you got a month till the next level comes out. Play through it again and again and again and see everything that it has to offer. I will say I think that was kind of genius game design to release it episodically like that, but it didn't do well sales wise. Just to give you a little bit of backstory, it's because of the sales of Hitman 2016 that Square Enix decided to like back out of their deal with IO Interactive. So from Hitman 2 on, IO Interactive has had full ownership and full control over the Hitman IP, which is pretty cool, man. Because you're like owned by Square Enix, and then like suddenly like you're not only independent, but you own the Hitman IP again. It's like that's a pretty cool situation to be in,
right?
and obviously they've taken like that.
Crazy now, it's doing such a great job. Hitman 3
Such
and 2
such a success
again.
story. Yeah, Hitman
Yeah.
1 and 2 sound like crazy now because of Hitman 3. Again, such an ingenious way to keep people interested in your series, and just especially with the whole VR element. It's like, man, just to be able
Yeah.
to import these and replay them in a totally different way. Absolutely crazy.
Yep.
I don't know, man. Should we rate this sucker?
I think it's time.
All
Yeah.
right. What's our rating system? Oh, I said I wasn't going to ask you this week, but I'm going to ask you. What's our rating scale?
One, you need this game. Gotta get it. It's worth every goddamn penny. Buy it. Two, wait for a sale. Few dollars off ain't gonna hurt. You'll enjoy it more because you save some money. Three, just fucking don't bother. Just again, go roll around in the snow naked. You'll enjoy that more than playing this game. So yes, Brian, what do you rate this? 1, 2, 3.
I gotta say, man, I think this is a pretty easy answer. As much as I love Hitman 3, I started spending time with Hitman 1 and 2, and found myself enjoying Hitman 1 and 2 much more. I do love that there's this overarching story, right? It all reminds me of the X-Files. Like every time I think about individual episodic stories where it's like, here's your monster of the week, or Fringe or something like that. Here's your monster of the week, where it's a self-contained story. Like you don't really have to know too much about Mulder and Scully, but you know that they're just investigating these weird things that are happening, right? Strange events. And then self-contained within that are characters that you probably never hear from again, but they're very interesting and they delve deeper and you learn more about those characters. But like
Alex Krycek.
Alex Krycek, and you can ignore basically what's happening inside of the FBI, and like how Mulder and Scully are being investigated, and how people are trying to shut down the X-Files, and how the cigarette smoking man is like, is he good? Is he bad? Who knows? Is he Fox's dad? We don't have any. No, it's like there's all sorts of shit going on, right? Where it's like if you just decide to watch an individual episode, it's good enough. Like you don't need to watch the whole series to understand what's happening. And I think Hitman does that almost better than any other game that I've played. It's like, yes, there's an overarching story where eventually later on, and like especially in Hitman 3, it's cool to know what happened in Hitman 1 and 2 to like really understand these relationships. But man, you take each level as an individual story, as an individual episode, and you like walk into, there's you walk into the fashion show, and it's like there's all these different people who have their own things going on, and the deeper you dive into the game, into this episode, you learn more about what they're doing, what they're going through, what's happening, who are these people, how can I infiltrate, knowing these things. And then it's almost like, okay, roll credits, and next week here's a new episode that again you didn't really need to see last week's episode to understand, because the Fox and Mulder thing, all you need to know is that you're Agent 47 and you got to go kill the bad guy. It's real simple. But the overarching story is actually pretty satisfying once it concludes at the end of Hitman 3. So I kind of love how this works, because it ropes new people in, and it really satisfies people who have been around for a while too.
Yeah.
Ultimately, man, it's probably the most beautiful VR game I've ever played in my life, and it's and I can't really knock off too many points because of the DualShock implementation. Fingers crossed for move support, but ultimately. I mean, this is 100% a clear-cut one. This is they absolutely killed it.
Yeah.
What about you, man?
So, being an old fan of the old Hitman games and not playing in a very long time, hearing it was in VR, seeing all the hype, I was really trying to avoid Hitman 3 because I hadn't played 1 and 2. And then when everybody's like, oh, you can import 1 and 2, I'm like, God damn it. Now I got to buy it. And then I'm telling you, I fucking absolutely love it. I think what's great about this game is that you can be in a patient mood and play this game. You could be in a rushed mood and play this game.
Sure.
And it's going to be an entirely different experience every time. You can even be patient halfway through and rush for the rest of it. And it's insane. And I mean, just trying to pick up all the pieces and all the chaos you've caused and contain it sometimes is a game in itself. It's like, oh, and then, you know, because of staff members and the witnesses and people that see you doing shit, you got to kill them or knock them out. I mean, whatever you want to do, but generally you kill them. And I just think that visually the game is stunning. I thought Resident Evil 7 was the best looking game, and now it is still really good, but I don't know. I think this one to me is better looking because of how diverse the environments are, how open they are, how alive they feel. You could just walk around and go into buildings, you know what I mean? Like, and look and see shit, you know, and hear things going on that will change the way you play the game. You could be, your target could be here on the map of this big of a map, and you're over here in a building and you hear a conversation or see something that absolutely will help you to kill this piece of shit. You know, like, and it's insane how they do that, and all the outfits that you can get into, the different ways to kill the people. I mean, I just found myself even at times where it was just like maybe not feeling like I want to play it, but to prepare for the episode. There was one night where I was like, I need to put a little more time in, you know, but I didn't feel like it. And then I jumped in, and next thing you know it, I didn't want to stop, you know, because I was having such a blast, you know, because it is so enjoyable just to hear and see. I mean, if I haven't given it away now, it's without a doubt a solid one for me. This to me right now might be, I might enjoy this more than I did Resident Evil 7.
Wow.
And 7 took me about 15, 16 hours to go through. And while I haven't put that much time into this one yet, I find that I don't know. I've just had such a good time with it because it varies. The experience varies so much. With Resident Evil, you kind of know what you're getting, and yeah, you know what you're getting with this. You got to kill somebody. But the way that you go about it is just like there's so much.
Yeah.
So without a doubt, an absolute solid one for me. Fucking hands down. Beautiful game.
Excellent. All right, you guys, that pretty much does it for an episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Please let us know in the comments below what you thought of Hitman 1. Did you play it before VR? Did you play it after VR? Also, let us know what other games you want us to review. Do you want us to review Hitman 2? Want us to review Hitman 3? We could probably do that.
Yeah.
Let us know. For another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR, my name is Brian Paul.
I'm Jeremy King.
And we'll see you next week.